So here's a hot take. Hot takes only on the Jackie Snack channel. Fast travel in video games is bad. But at the same time, fast travel is kind of a necessary evil in some of those larger games, isn't it? Fast traveling is something that I find to be a bit of an odd practice. I think it's weird that video game developers will advertise their video games using, you know, how massive this open world is.
4 times the size of Fallout 4.
And how much stuff there is to do.
16 times the detail.
And then give the player the ability to teleport across the entire game world in a few seconds with little to no trade-off. However, occasionally you'll find a game that makes the exploration or traveling the world without using the fast travel mechanic more rewarding, usually by making the game world entertaining enough that players don't want to use the fast travel. Not necessarily discourage it outright, but just it's more fun to walk the whole distance, if that makes sense. Before we get into that, we need to talk about the thing that you are usually walking across. The map. Maps in video games have the potential to be absolutely phenomenal, one of the best video game worlds ever created, or terrible. A theory I would like to posit, I dub the Cracker Barrel Shrimp Theory. Hear me out. Alright, so this one time I was at Cracker Barrel and I got some of their fried shrimp, right? And normally when you eat shrimp, you're supposed to take the tails out of the shrimp because it's like not edible or something.
Brother, these fried shrimps were so good I ate the whole thing, tails and all.
So a good video game map is a lot like Cracker Barrel Shrimp. You want to explore the whole thing, not just the parts that you're supposed to or the parts that you're, you know, not typically supposed to see. And one of the developers that can act on the Cracker Barrel Shrimp Theory or the CBST better than most of their peers is Bethesda. Bethesda is a conflicting developer to talk about, to say the least. Their story writing ranges from pretty good, very engaging.
My top 5 is Drake
to but one thing that they have done consistently well is the map design and the sense of exploration you get when playing their games. The Fallouts, the Elder Scrolls, all swiftly defeat competition in their respective genres. I would go even as far, as brave. I will say this with my chest loud and proud for all to hear. I think that Fallout 3 is better than New Vegas in the sense of exploration and map design. Alright, so the way that Bethesda does their map design is pretty cool. Alright, so Bethesda's map design and the way that they engage you to adventure and explore the world is pretty interesting, right? So we'll say, okay, we'll start here, right? Because that's pretty close to where the game actually starts. You get a quest in Whiterun that's like, oh, fuck, we gotta deliver the cheese up to Dawnstar or whatever. And so the easiest way to go about delivering this quest, delivering the cheese to Dawnstar, would be to leave Whiterun and to take the trails all the way up, you know, go to Dawnstar. But what Bethesda does is they will put a bunch of cool stuff on the road from Whiterun to Dawnstar. There will be like a cave over here and a dungeon up here and like, oh, here's some freaking demon cultists over here or whatever, right? Yeah, you can just go from Whiterun up to Dawnstar and deliver your cheese. If you know where Dawnstar is, yeah, you can just fast travel to Dawnstar and deliver the cheese. But all of these locations, all the way on this road, are little side plots for you to go on. There might be a really cool sword in this cave or whatever I said, dungeon over here. There might be some really powerful armor way up here. The way all this stuff works is thanks to a leak that CDPR did when talking about Witcher 3, where they talked about this sort of 30-second rule. The 30-second rule is sort of this invisible radius that is drawn around the player whenever they are traveling, that says that every 30 seconds while traveling the game world, something will happen. This varies from an animal jumping across the road to like vampires dressing up as clerics, bandits attacking. The list just goes on and on and on. And this is another thing that, in my opinion, Bethesda soars over its peers in doing. The Witcher is a game series about a monster hunter. So why the fuck are most of the random encounters in Witcher 3 like sheep prancing across the road or human enemies? Skyrim's encounters are copy-pasted. Yes, I will grant you that. But those special events like that vampire cleric thing that I mentioned just a second ago is more special when it happens. And in my opinion, it's a lot more memorable than some of the other stuff that the other games do. In Fallout 4, there's a random encounter where you might run across a man named Clinton and his daughter, Charlie. And this random encounter is really almost nothing. It is a dad and his daughter surviving in the Commonwealth wasteland. You can sit down with them at their campfire while they talk about the wasteland, while they talk about their dreams and what they want to accomplish in their lives. And it's random encounters like this, random encounters that aren't just a bandit attack, that aren't just some enemy coming up to fight you. But it's random encounters like that that make the world feel lived in. So now that we know what we're walking on, the map, how are we getting around? This is where a lot of games have different takes. Most of the time, it is walking. Aforementioned Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Walking. And sometimes you have the option to get horses or carriages. Daggerfall had the opportunity to get a boat to sail across the bay, that was pretty neat. But again, most of the time, walking. In the Red Dead games, your mode of transportation is your trusty steed. However, you also have the option to set up a campsite from the menu that will allow you to fast travel across the map. This makes you stop your active pursuits and watch a loading screen while Arthur Morgan or John or Jack Marston set up their camp in the middle of the wilderness, which does sort of de-incentivize the idea of fast travel, because it's like, yeah, I could fast travel, but at the same time, if I just keep riding the horse, then I can like shoot bad guys and I'll be there in a little bit anyway. Some games feature characters that you play as with superhuman, superhero abilities. I'm talking about your Spider-Man, your Infamous, your Prototype. All of these games are games where you play as someone with superhuman abilities. Some of these games include a fast travel mechanic. And there is no downside to using these fast travel waypoints. There's no cost, it doesn't take in-game resources or money or anything like that. It's just boring, which oddly incentivizes you to not use the fast travel system a lot better than other games, in my opinion. Most games that have a trade-off for using the fast travel mechanic rather than exploring the open world do so in a not so great way, in my opinion. Whether it be using currency or in-game resources to afford your fast travel, these superhero games are a lot like the more adventure sort of Bethesda-y style games, where it doesn't cost anything, there is no penalty or inconvenience for using the fast travel system. Where these games differ is it de-incentivizes that mechanic a lot better than the other games, in that it's just boring. Alright. Hypothetical. What's more entertaining? Watching Spider-Man scroll through Twitter on the New York City subway system, or being fucking Spider-Man and zipping around New York City with your freaking web shooters and all that stuff? Rock hands. Spider-Man. A loading screen traveling across Seattle, or being Delson Rowe and running across the city at light speeds, literally using your neon powers. Also, Motive has released a teaser that they are making an Iron Man game, which is really cool, I'm not gonna lie. And this would fall in line with this open world superhero concept fast travel crap that I'm talking about. What's more entertaining, watching a loading screen or being Iron Man flying above the city in your Iron Man suit?
Also, if any motive devs happen to stumble on this video, please license in-game music. Imagine how cool it would be to listen to like AC/DC in the Spider-Man helmet while you're flying around New York or whatever.
A lot of the Soulsborne style games have some form of fast travel, whether it's fast traveling to bonfires or sites of lost grace, or using the trams or the stagways in Hollow Knight. Most of the time when you're playing these games, you don't want to. In those Soulsborne style Metroidvania ad-libs, you know, whatever you want to call them, games, blood is money. The more enemies you kill, the more money you get that you can spend on upgrades or leveling up or, you know, what have you. It's also like really satisfying to fast travel back to like an early game location when you're in the late game and then just like steamroll all of the guys there. Shows how far you've come. Alright, we've talked about the map, we've talked about how we're getting around, we've even talked about some of the ways that some games de-incentivize you from using fast travel. But what are the ways that you fast travel? What is this whole video about? One of the most common ways that video games integrate fast travel mechanics is by using viewpoints or waypoints or whatever you want to call them. These are specific points on the game map that you can fast travel to, sometimes from another one of those locations, sometimes, most of the time, from anywhere in the game world to that specific location. Breath of the Wild and Assassin's Creed with their viewpoint towers. A lot of the FromSoft games do this. Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne with the Sites of Lost Grace, bonfires, and lanterns respectively. Baldur's Gate 3 is similar in that regard. You can fast travel to any one of the runestones or waypoints or whatever from any point in the map, but only to that specific point. Most MMOs have fast travel points set up in middles of, you know, busy locations like town squares or whatever that you can fast travel from free of charge. However, to fast travel to a certain point costs usually the in-game currency. Sort of a trade-off, making it more convenient to fast travel, but using some of your resources to do it, which in turn de-incentivizes the use of that fast travel mechanic. You're supposed to explore the world and mingle with people, don't zip across it. Speaking of incentivization, is that a word? I don't know. Let's talk about some of the ways that they de-incentivize use of fast travel. Obviously, there is the use of your in-game resources to fast travel. Be this in the MMOs where it uses currency, or in games like Valheim that use some of your tangible, like actual resources to construct portals to fast travel from. Same thing with No Man's Sky. Using resources to create or to fast travel is a very common practice if you're going to de-incentivize the fast travel mechanic in the first place. However, in my opinion, they are outclassed by one sort of series of games, I guess. And those are the games where you play as a superhero. Games like Infamous or Spider-Man or Prototype. Some of these games have a fast travel mechanic, but all of these games are where you play as a superhuman. The fast travel is that sort of waypoint thing that we just talked about, where you can fast travel from any place in the world to a specific point. However, unlike the other games that have that, these games de-incentivize the use of that fast travel mechanic in a lot more of an entertaining way, in my opinion. And that is, their fast travel mechanic is just boring. Time to criticize the Bethesda games because I spent way too long hyping them up earlier. But Fallout and the Elder Scrolls don't have any penalization or de-incentivization for using the fast travel system. It really is just open the map, click a location twice, and watch a loading screen. But the one sort of semblance that I brought up earlier was the fact that Bethesda doesn't necessarily have to de-incentivize you to not use the fast travel system. It, much like the superhero games, it's just more entertaining to exist in that world rather than watch a loading screen. The fast travel mechanic, in my opinion, in the Bethesda games is more so there to help you at the end game. After you've seen everything and explored the world to its fullest potential, or as much as you want to, then you can start to use the fast travel mechanic. That's just how I play anyway. So we've talked about games that have free fast travel to anywhere. We've talked about games that have free fast travel to a certain point. Games that have a costly fast travel to a certain point. And the next logical step following that sort of series is to not have any fast travel at all. Games like Grand Theft Auto, Morrowind, kind of, we'll get to it in a second. Most of the survival games, Shadows of Doubt and Outer Wilds, are all games that don't have a onboard fast travel system. The GTA games don't have any sort of fast travel, not really anyway. The closest that they get is you have to roleplay as like a normal citizen and hail a cab, and then after selecting your destination, then you can skip to immediately go there. But that is as close as those games get. In that same sort of like cars driving world, Forza Horizon is an open world racing car game where the entire point of the game is to drive really cool cars really fast. And sure, maybe it has an onboard fast travel system, but like those superhero games, why would you want to do that when the entire point of the game is to drive cool cars? Morrowind doesn't have a dedicated fast travel mechanic, but it does have something that is sort of similar in a way. There are a pair of spells that you can get that are called Mark and Recall. Using Mark at any point in the world, most points in the world, will place this sort of invisible beacon on it that then you can use the Recall spell to teleport from anywhere in the world back to that location. There are like 3 exceptions to this rule in the entire game. Fast traveling in video games isn't a one-size-fits-all, even though it seems like some developers think that it is. Open world games don't have to have fast travel. Games like The Long Dark, Skyrim, Fallout 4, Valheim, and Spider-Man are all proof of that. Whether it be because the game is supposed to force you to explore and adventure the lands, or the game does a good enough job at making you want to explore and adventure the lands, or the game is just more entertaining when you're exploring or adventuring the lands. Fast travel isn't required. It is more of a feature that is there after you've done everything else and you don't really want to have to explore anymore. The reason that I'm saying this is because I don't like fast travel. I prefer to explore the game world as much as I can. No stone left unturned and all that stuff. But if the game isn't going to reward or incentivize my exploration, I just won't do it. So, to any developers, indie or otherwise, that happen to stumble across this video, remember the Cracker Barrel shrimp theory. Make gamers want to explore your world without forcing it, and make the method of traversal of said world fun, entertaining, engaging, whatever adjective you want to throw there. Whether this is random encounters or having a slew of modes of transportation that are all equally engaging or fun, just don't make a map and then be like, we don't have to put anything here, they'll just fast travel anyway. Because if you did that, then your game would be on the same level as Starfield. Do you want to be on the same level as Starfield? If I put the mic there, it looks like it covers my entire eyes. Yeah, this is how we're doing the outro. Hey, what's up, gamers? I know I haven't posted in a little while. Sorry about that. As you can probably tell, I moved. I built a Lego. That's cool. Anyway, thank you a lot for watching the video. Thanks for sticking with me while I went radio silent. This move wasn't something that I expected. It wasn't something that I really wanted, but it happened, and I am just moving on. I'm gonna try to keep doing shit, but listen, stuff got a little hard all of a sudden, so I'll do it when I can, but until then, I just ask that you kind of stick with me. Thanks. Appreciate. Love you guys. Drink water. Wear your seatbelt. Tip your waitress.